The other day, as I was walking along, I saw a man wearing a shirt that read, "Got Jesus." In what I suppose was an effort to be relevant and or funny, it was echoing the old "Got Milk" campaign. And before I go any further, I want to say this isn't about going after this guy or this shirt. I'm sure this guy was a great guy who was just trying to rep Jesus through what he wore, which for the record I think is an awesome thing. If you were trying to spread a positive message through something as small as your clothing, I think that's super cool. So good on you, whoever you were. And as far as the shirt, if you want a Christian version of "Got Milk" because that's too secular, go for it. I'm not going to lose sleep over you having this shirt, but it did make me think, though perhaps not in the way that the shirt intended. You see, it made me think about this idea of "got Jesus," as though God, and I'm going to use God and Jesus interchangeably in this, and to explain why that's okay would take way longer than you want this video to be, so just go with it. But we have this idea of God that he is something to be had. We make God into something so small that we can put him in our back pocket to use when we need him. We make God into this charm bracelet, this good luck charm that we pray to or rub the bald head before our basketball game in an effort to win, which has always confused me because if both teams are praying to the same God, how does that... Anyway, but seriously, this is a real problem, I think, because we make God into someone who just does our bidding. We have this idea of God, and he's so small that we manipulate him to do as we wish. If we will just say that we are Team Jesus or Team God, if we've got the cross necklace, if we've prayed the prayer, then he's on our side. And we can have him there for when we need him. Not any other time, of course, but just, before the big game or, before a big day. And it breaks my heart. And you might be saying, "Austin, that sounds a little dramatic," but I think this is something serious. And I say it breaks my heart because I think about every person that's ever walked away from God because of this view of God. To every person who, when the results came back cancerous, they said, "God, I'm done. Because God, what I signed up for isn't what I got." They had this idea of God that if they were on his side, then he'd be on their side and only good things would happen. They had this idea that God is someone that does our bidding to make our life easier. So when things get rough, if God isn't there to help, God isn't there at all. If the God I had in my mind of this God who was in my back pocket when I needed him isn't the God that I find, then there must not be a God. For every person that prayed so hard to get into that college and didn't. To every person who had their cross necklace, who went to church, who thought they were doing it right, and then their parents got a divorce, then you lost your job, then the relationship ended, and you said, "God, this isn't what I signed up for, I'm done." Those are the people I think of. And it's tragic to me because the God that we find in the Bible, and whether you're into the Bible or not, whether you think it's just an old fairy tale or whatever you think of it, the Bible tells this story. And it tells this story of people trying to make sense of God and life and what on earth it all means. And the God we find revealed in there is so much more than that. And you see, like I said, the Old Testament, it tells this story of people, they're trying to get it. They're trying to figure out who God is. And they're inflicting their own personalities, their own thoughts, their own worldviews onto this God. And time again, they try to put God in this box to understand. They try to shrink down God into this small part they can understand, this tame God who is on their side and no one else's. And constantly, time after time after time, God is saying, "No, I am bigger than that." They think, "God, you are here to bless just us and no one else." And God says, "I am here to bless all nations through you." And they don't get it. God, time after time after time, says, "I am bigger than the labels you put on me, the categories you try to fit me into, the box you try to place me in." And they don't get it, and they don't get it, and they don't get it. And the Bible tells this story over and over and over, to the point where you are just saying, "Guys, when are you going to get this?" And God comes in to humanity. He says, I will make this crystal clear. And the clearest way he could do it was he took on skin and bones like us, and he said, this is me. He says, you've been trying to figure me out, and you couldn't grasp who I am, and I'm telling you, this is me. And when he came, he was even more beautiful than we imagined, keeping in line with everything that had happened up to that point. He broke our categories, and tragically keeping in line with our behavior, we didn't recognize him. When God came, we didn't recognize him. We killed him. We killed him because we thought God was supposed to be something else, and he didn't fit into that. We thought God was this and God was that, and we weren't ready for it. But here's the thing. While God was here, he invited us into something so much bigger than a God that we can put in our pocket. Because I'm telling you, if your God fits in your back pocket, your God is too small. And so while Jesus was here walking this earth, constantly he came to people and he said, come and see and follow me. He invites us to give up ourselves. In this grand gift, he says, if you give your life, I can give you a life that is unimaginable. He promises this abundant life, this quality of life we had never seen, but he says first takes giving up what you already have. We must leave where we are to get where we're going. And so rather than presenting us a God that we can have for ourselves, he says, I came so I might have you. But here's the paradox. When we give ourselves to God, when we say, God, I know this isn't about me having you, I want you to have me, we get more than we ever could have before. We get so much more from giving ourselves to God than we could have ever gotten when we tried to squeeze all we could out of God for ourselves. And that is the message of the gospel. That is what Jesus came and told us. And constantly he invited people, come and see, follow me, leave what you were doing and just take a look, come and see. And despite what we might think, despite how we might do it now in our churches, Jesus didn't come and say, come and follow me after you've agreed to all these beliefs, after you've cleaned yourself up. No, we found this God who was so much more than that. This God who ate with outcasts. This God who touched the untouchable. He healed the sick. He told stories in which he made heroes out of the downtrodden and the people that society had cast aside and said was worthless. And he said, the least will be the greatest. And this is the same God that we were trying to make sense of for so long. This God who is so much bigger than we could have ever imagined. This God who through his Spirit breathes life into the whole world, that the whole world is animated by his breath, that the breath of God permeates life and provides color to our monochromatic existence. He gives purpose to our lives. He gives meaning to the universe. This same God that we've been trying to make sense of is so much bigger than anything we had come up with prior. This God is so much bigger than the God that we make so small far too often. If the God you know fits in your back pocket, you are not knowing the God of the universe. If your God fits in your back pocket, your God is too small. And once and for all, it is time we take back our God and see him in the glory that he is, see the magnificence and marvel at this God who spoke the universe into existence. And that same God who was so big and so powerful, this same God who gives meaning to everything, the same God who can breathe life into existence came to be with us. He said, this is who I am. He invites us to give up ourselves to find a new life that is so much more. I'm not interested in having God because he can have me. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this. As always, I always say this, but it truly does mean so much to me that you guys would take time to watch these videos. It kind of amazes me, and I was super excited to put this one together. I I think it's something that's super, super important. So if you enjoyed it at all, I'd encourage you to leave a comment, click like, feel free to subscribe so that you can see more of this. And until then, guys, keep spreading light, keep spreading love in all that you do. Peace.